Over a year ago when I first started this channel, I did a comparison of two James Bond films. It was enjoyable to see how, spirited everyone became in the comments section. But joking aside, it was interesting how after 50 plus years in its franchise, and a bumpy wavelength of reception, James Bond is still widely debated, deconstructed, and cherished. As fun as it is to discuss great films in the series, it's important to talk about why the others didn't work. I'm going to look at the two Daniel Craig Bond films that are generally regarded as the lower rung of his tenure, Quantum of Solace and Spectre. 7 categories, 7 points, which is the better film? And is it even good enough to deserve its spot in this beloved franchise? Let's go. The script is the Achilles heel in both these films, however Quantum had more of an excuse to limp. The dialogue is forgettable and the villain's plan is about hiking up prices for Bolivia's water, a plot so boring that you already forgot it just now. Spectre has a different problem, in that it tries to be the gritty Bond it had been so far, and a cheesy romp, and I'm not the first to mention that these tones do not mesh. It doesn't have the unfinished feel of Quantum, but it just makes so many unwise decisions. The plot twist that isn't a twist nor affects the plot, unnecessary focus on supporting characters, the attempt to tie up the disconnected threads of the previous films, a disturbing torture sequence followed by the easiest escape ever. The movie picks lanes as haphazardly as an LA driver, and it cripples the experience. Spectre's storytelling made me angry, while Quantum's didn't, so by default it gets the point. To me, this is the greatest strength of Quantum of Solace. This will sound weird, but the scene I recall most vividly is a simple bit with 007 at an airplane bar sucking down martinis. This is the first time I really saw Bond use alcohol as a coping mechanism. The guy is an alcoholic. He isn't immortal, even psychologically, and can still suffer like we can. It's a downer, sure, but it helped me empathize with his character. His relationship with M is expanded, laying the fuse trail for Skyfall's climax, and I love how Bond's immaturity is carried over from Casino Royale. His revenge over losing Vesper isn't depicted as honorable. Emotionally it's understandable, but as an agent it turns him into a moron. He uses the violent nature of his job in the same way he subsists on alcohol, and instinctively he thinks that by eliminating the villain, he'll stop aching over Vesper. In Spectre, I'm not sure what they're even going for with his character. And that's not necessarily bad, but they line up all these revelations like they're supposed to figure into Bond's psyche in some way, and it's so slapdash. The therapy session, the twist, the ending, these things are inserted like studio-mandated thumbtacks. To be fair, Bond's dialogue isn't terrible, but if the actor can't muster anything above drowsy, then any characterization is going to fall apart. I have never, in my life, seen an actor as unhappy in a role as Daniel Craig is in Spectre. I mean, just look at him. What are you doing, dude? When media outlets poured in support for Monica Bellucci being cast as the oldest Bond girl, I did think it was an interesting idea. An older woman putting Bond in his place? Cool. Going simpler, making her just a classy cougar? Also cool. Monica Bellucci certainly has the acting range and sex appeal, but the praise was premature. If an older Bond girl is mishandled, then it's almost worse than just going with something standard. So, how did Spectre do? Monica Bellucci has about as much screen time as that silent Greek woman from Skyfall. The way Bond seduces her is downright creepy, and I find it amusing that one of the worst kiss scenes in film history was banned in India for being too erotic. So if you somehow weren't able to watch it, here's basically what it looked like. No, really. As for the other girl, there's not much to say. I'm all for a Bond girl without too much characterization, but once again, Spectre tries to do both, portraying her as a hard-edged woman who doesn't put up with Bond's shit, go to hell! And then inexplicably throwing herself at him.
What do we do now?
Okay. Quantum's girls are simply underwhelming. Olga Kurylenko doesn't bring much screen presence, and the actress for Strawberry Fields
Just Fields.
Delivers the lines like a petulant teenager.
We are teachers on sabbatical. This fits our cover.
None of these characters are interesting or even definable, but I will let Spectre slide by with a point because Lea Seydoux at least gave a good performance with what little she had. I was so excited to see Waltz as a Bond villain, match made in heaven, but it feels like that's as far as the cast and crew went to make that happen. Not that I'm letting Waltz off easy. I can't say there's one specific thing wrong with his performance, but you probably felt it. Something slightly off, and I think it's that Waltz seems trapped in the role. The facial expressions, posture, mannerisms, the cadence of his voice, it's all so limp, like Waltz is on autopilot.
Information.
In theaters, I really didn't like Dominic Green as a villain. He isn't threatening or tough. He's whiny, sweaty, and uncomfortable in his own skin. When he has to network at events, you can tell that he would just rather shoot himself, and his attempts at intimidation come across as pathetic, like a kid with a finger pistol. But upon rewatching the film, this is actually what I really like about him. The actor plays the part perfectly, and to me, it's logical for a supervillain to have an almost sociopathic detachment from people. Having the villain be so feeble makes him seem less powerful, sure. Green mostly stands around making deals for 90 minutes and then starts swinging around an axe like an idiot. But it helps us hate him in that Weasley sort of way. He's Archibald Cunningham, he's Commodus, and weirdly enough, his performance reminded me of Road to Perdition's Connor Rooney, played by Daniel Craig. Dominic Green is simply more entertaining to watch, and he personifies a bad guy much better. All the action in Spectre is crisp and clean and utilizes a good deal of practical effects. I should love it, so why don't I? Maybe it's because I don't feel the stakes. Maybe it's because everything outside of the train car fight seems too easy for Bond. Maybe it's the rushed and anticlimactic helicopter scene at the end. Maybe it's because it's too clean, like I'm watching the behind the scenes footage of characters and vehicles queuing up for their big moments, and contains about as much excitement as an above average beer run. Yeah, I think it's all those things. Quantum has the opposite issue. The action feels more raw and gritty, but the editing and camera work are horrible. Can we all agree that shaky cam has no place in a Bond film? And if the only way you can make a chase intense is to attach the camera to a squirrel and let it run loose, then you are a shitty filmmaker. Both theme songs are really emblematic of the film's overall flaws. Quantum features the most bizarre pairing of singers, Jack White and Alicia Keys? While I did enjoy the swirling, sandy visuals, their voices do not cooperate. White is constantly drowned out, and their harmonies are not harmonious. Spectre is even worse. If you want your mind blown, listen to Radiohead's rejected theme song for the film. Now, I do understand why Radiohead would not, in a million years, fit any other Bond film. However, this is the darkest Bond movie ever, and it would have fit a hell of a lot better than this whiny ballad from Sam Smith. Even if you like the song, the visuals they chose to go with it do not match. Skulls, shadows, shapeless figures, and gothic hentai fill the screen, while Smith is in the background like... And when I say Spectre is dark, I'm not using that as a compliment. It's not gritty like Children of Men, not sensuous like Jane Eyre, or suspenseful like Rear Window. It's muddy, mucky, and fucking ugly. What was the color scheme of this film? Poop brown and faded gold? Bond films need variety and vibrancy. Even daytime scenes are so muted, they're kind of gross. Not to say nothing works. The opening tracking shot is groovy, there's some good framing, and I'm glad the shaky cam isn't around to ruin the party. But it's so boring. Quantum is messy and shaky and even inept at points. The camera doesn't settle enough to get a real grasp of environments, and nothing is shot with any imagination, but it didn't put me to sleep. So I have to choose between proficient Nyquil and sloppy cocaine. So almost under protest, I'm giving it to Spectre for at least showing some level of craftsmanship. I've spent this video explaining all the technical aspects of film, but what is equally, and perhaps more important, is how the film succeeded at what it set out to do. Is a horror movie scary? Is a comedy funny? Is an action film exciting? Obviously the technical aspects influence this, but I think it's wise to distinguish how impressive a film is, and how well it functioned at its own agenda. In this case, how did Quantum and Spectre fare at being spy action films? How Bond are these Bond films? Spectre is too slow and drab and monochromatic to instill that sense of adventure. You can really feel the absence of Judi Dench here, who brought such vitality to scenes that could have been snoozers. Every scene without Bond on screen I wanted to nap, and the finished product feels less like a spy film and more like a stale outline of one. The most damning failure is that Bond films are all about exotic locations, and Spectre manages to make Rome and the Alps dull. How is that even possible? Quantum at least has some color. The hotel is a nice setting, Bond is suave in sections, although the way he seduces Fields is so lame.
The stationery. You come and help me look.
Oh shit, hold on, let me write that one down, I'm gonna use that at the bar. There aren't as many long stretches of boring dialogue, and even though the plot is rather inconsequential, the pacing gives off a sense that we're at least moving towards something. There are genuine moments where the film earned that coveted, "aw yeah" feeling. It isn't classy, but it's classier. So Quantum wins, but the question is, does it deserve its place in the franchise? Yes. There are Bond films that I honestly don't enjoy, but if I had the power, I wouldn't remove them from the series. The lesser movies not only show us what doesn't, and by contrast does, work in a Bond film, but they also add something almost endearing to the affair. These are silly films, but I don't hate them. They have genuine good moments, and while I wish they were better, at no point did they besmirch the franchise. Spectre is so full of bad decisions, it's swelling, and its attempts to tie together previous films was the point of hemorrhage. Quantum had the right intentions, but didn't know how to get the job done. Spectre was broken from the start. Quantum did its job badly, Spectre did it wrong. When Bond drives off at the end of Spectre, I wouldn't care if he never returned, if the car detonated and someone like Michael Fassbender strolled in. In 2 words, the finale was a good riddance. What was Quantum's?
Bond, I need you back.
I never left.
Damn straight.